Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is planning to run as an independent, complaining that he hasn't been treated fairly by the Democratic Party. While RFK Jr. has been polling around 15% for several months, his unfavorability has slowly risen. RFK Jr.'s declining favorability is being driven by Democratic primary voters, and while he has a net negative favorability among Democratic primary voters, he has very strong numbers among Republican primary voters. I think this is going to be the big misconception about a three-way race. Right now, it appears that RFK Jr. is actually going to hurt the Republican candidate more than Joe Biden. In a recent Quinnipiac poll, RFK Jr. has a net minus 43 favorability among registered Democrats, plus 30 among registered Republicans, and minus 1 among registered independents. His favorability is also better among demographics the GOP, and more specifically Donald Trump, needs, including white voters without a college degree. In states where the election will be decided by tens of thousands of votes, I think we could see RFK Jr. siphon off enough votes to prevent Donald Trump from winning. That being said, if we look at RFK Jr.'s current campaign messaging, he's really highlighting his environmental and anti-corporate activism, which could appeal to some groups of left-wing voters. So let's head to the map and see how things would shake out. We don't have any three-way race polls yet, but I think we can make some educated guesses. There are a lot of states where RFK Jr. wouldn't have an impact. Joe Biden easily wins the following states: Washington, Oregon, California, Hawaii, Illinois, Vermont, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, DC, and New York. Colorado and New Mexico might not be quite as large margins, but Joe Biden should win both by about 10%. On the flip side, Donald Trump wins the following states pretty easily: Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, Utah, both Dakotas, Nebraska at large, Nebraska's 1st congressional district and Nebraska's 3rd congressional district, Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, West Virginia, and South Carolina. Let's talk about Iowa next. Here's where I think RFK Jr. could theoretically pull in a few percent of the vote. He's been running in the Democratic primary and has spent a lot of time there doing campaign events. The demographics of Iowa also play into RFK Jr.'s strengths in terms of the groups that currently view him favorably. However, Trump easily won Iowa in 2016 and 2020, despite Obama winning it in 2008 and 2012. So while I think RFK Jr. could win a few percentage points, I don't think it's enough for Biden to flip the state. Polling shows Trump up by 11%. Even if we shave off a few points, the outcome is likely for Trump. Kennedy has also been campaigning in New Hampshire, but he's polling at around 10% in the Democratic primary, which is worse than his national number. Meanwhile, polls show Joe Biden leading Trump head-to-head by about 9 points. I don't think RFK really has any impact, and Joe Biden wins New Hampshire by 5 to 10 points. We don't have any polling from Maine, but Democrats have carried Maine at large and Maine's 1st congressional district in every presidential election since 1992. However, Trump won the 2nd congressional district in 2016 and 2020. We know Joe Biden is going to carry the 1st congressional district by a large margin. I think Trump is the likely favorite to win the 2nd congressional district, though RFK could chip into Trump's margin of victory since it's a rural, white district. And Joe Biden should win Maine at large, likely by a margin of 5 to 10 points, running up the score in the much larger 1st congressional district. Next, let's head to Virginia. RFK Jr. does have some ties in the state. His family had a home there, and he went to law school at the University of Virginia. On some occasions, we've seen otherwise irrelevant third-party candidates do well in their home states. For example, in 2016, Gary Johnson won more than 9% in New Mexico, where he used to be governor. Johnson's vote share was actually larger than Clinton's margin of victory in New Mexico in 2016. However, I don't expect we'd see anything like that for RFK Jr. Biden won Virginia by more than 10% in 2020, but current polling shows Biden leading by an average of just 4. With RFK Jr. in the race, I think Biden wins Virginia by about 5 to 10 points, putting this in the likely Democrat column. North Carolina is a state the Biden campaign is actively targeting. Trump won North Carolina by a little more than 1% in 2020. In a theoretical scenario where RFK Jr. siphons off a couple of points, that could be the difference. And while Biden now holds the incumbency advantage, I'm not sure it'll be enough to flip North Carolina in 2024. In 2020, North Carolina voted nearly 6% more conservative than the country as a whole. If Trump can maintain or improve upon his margins in rural counties, it should be enough to offset Biden's margins in the urban and suburban counties. Recent polling, even polls sponsored by Democratic organizations, show Trump ahead. I'm putting it in the Tilt Trump column. But Florida won't be as competitive. Florida has been trending right for a while, with Trump winning the state in 2020 and the GOP clobbering Democrats up and down the ballot in 2022. Polls show Trump up by an average of 5. That's probably a bit optimistic, but even if RFK Jr. were to shave off a couple of points, I don't think it'd be enough for Biden. It falls into the lean Trump category for me. And while I think it'd be a single-digit victory with RFK in the race, I would expect Donald Trump to win Alaska. In 2020, third parties received more than 4% of the vote in Alaska, and I wouldn't be shocked if someone with the name recognition of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. increased the third-party vote share. Texas is another state Trump should win in a three-way race. However, margins in Texas are narrowing, with Trump winning by just 5.5% in 2020. One thing to keep an eye on in these Sunbelt states is that RFK Jr.'s favorability among Hispanic voters is decent. In a recent Quinnipiac poll, RFK Jr. had a net plus 14 favorability among Hispanic voters. In 2020, Trump did very well with Hispanic voters in Texas. Does RFK Jr. eat into those gains? It's not impossible. However, I still think Trump would win Texas, but by a similar margin to what we saw in 2020, about 5%. On the flip side, Joe Biden should win Minnesota by 5 to 10 points. He won the state by more than 7 in 2020, and Democrats have carried Minnesota in every presidential election since 1976. I think Clinton's very narrow margin of victory in Minnesota in 2016 may have given the GOP some false hope that it was a purple state, when in fact her struggles there were more indicative of her poor campaign. With 7 states and 1 congressional district left on the map, we have a very close race, and if you're enjoying this video, please hit that subscribe button as it helps this channel out a ton. Looking at what's left on the map, I think the biggest margin of victory takes place in Ohio, with Trump winning. Ohio has taken a hard right turn in recent elections, with Trump winning by 8% in consecutive elections, and J.D. Vance getting elected to the Senate in 2022 despite facing a strong Democrat in Tim Ryan. But there are a few factors that lead me to believe that 2024 will be much more competitive than 2016 and 2020. First of all, Biden has the incumbency advantage. I think RFK Jr. could siphon off some votes from Trump, and the Democrats have a very strong Senate candidate in Sherrod Brown, who I expect to outrun Joe Biden in Ohio. Taking all that into consideration, I think a Trump victory here would be closer to 3 to 5 points rather than 8, putting it in the lean column, but it's an important victory for Trump nonetheless. Next, let's touch on Nebraska's 2nd Congressional District. Democrats won this district in 2008 and 2020. This district has been favorable for the Democrats relative to the rest of Nebraska because it encompasses most of the Omaha and Council Bluffs metropolitan area. However, Nebraska redrew its maps in 2022, which may make the 2nd Congressional District slightly more favorable for the GOP. Now, if you think RFK Jr. actually eats into Biden's support, you could call this tilt Republican. However, as it stands right now, I think RFK Jr. hurts Trump, allowing Biden to hold on to the 2nd Congressional District, which he won by more than 6.5% in 2020. We'll call it lean Biden for now. This puts us at 235 for Trump and 226 for Biden, and for being perfectly honest, these remaining states are true toss-ups this far out from the election. But leaving them blank is no fun, so let's talk about Georgia. Biden won Georgia by less than 12,000 votes in 2020, so this is a state where a strong third-party candidate could easily earn more votes than the final margin of victory. And before we talk about RFK Jr.'s impact, I actually want to talk about Cornel West. He's likely going to be the Green Party candidate in 2024. I recently saw a very prominent conservative YouTuber suggest Cornel West could get 2% of the vote in Georgia and help swing the election to Trump. There's one problem with that. The Green Party doesn't have ballot access in Georgia. They didn't have it in 2020 either, and their write-in campaign earned them 0.02% of the vote. Cornel West will not be a factor in Georgia. But RFK Jr. might. In some of my recent Electoral College videos, I've given Trump the edge in Georgia based on current polling, Governor Brian Kemp's approval rating, and new voting laws that may make it more difficult to vote absentee in 2024. But when we look at the demographics that view RFK Jr. favorably, particularly white voters without a college degree, those are votes Trump cannot afford to lose in 2024. And this is a scenario where I really think RFK Jr. can, based on the current data we have, flip this from tilt Trump to tilt Biden. Arizona is another state that was decided by less than 12,000 votes in 2020. Recent polls show Trump with a narrow lead. However, Biden has the incumbency advantage, and the demographics of Arizona are becoming more favorable for the Democratic Party. Even though Biden won the Hispanic vote in 2020, the GOP made some considerable gains. Does RFK Jr. siphon off some of the Hispanic vote that went to Trump in 2024? It wouldn't take much to have a big impact on the final result. Again, I think Arizona is a state where RFK Jr.'s vote total would outnumber the margin of victory between Biden and Trump, And since current data suggests RFK Jr. would affect Trump more than Biden, I have it tilt Biden in a three-way race. Biden also has the clear edge in Michigan. He won the state by nearly 3% in 2020. The Michigan GOP is broke, and I really think they're going to have a hard time running successful statewide campaigns in 2024. There are a couple big warning signs for Biden in Michigan, though. His approval among Michigan independents is very poor, and voters who were concerned about COVID voted heavily for Biden. That's probably not going to be a top-of-mind issue in 2024. Third-party candidates did very poorly in Michigan in 2020, and I'm not sure this is a state where RFK Jr. would make much of a difference. I see Biden taking Michigan by 1 to 2 percentage points. And that puts Biden at 268 electoral votes. He just needs any one of the remaining states to win, while Trump would need to win all three. Let's head next to Wisconsin, which Biden won by less than 21,000 votes in 2020. Interestingly, Kanye West and Green Party presidential candidate Howie Hawkins were kept off the ballot in Wisconsin in 2020. I'm not sure what RFK Jr.'s ground operation will look like in Wisconsin, but he's definitely not guaranteed ballot access. If RFK Jr. does make the ballot, I once again think he'd hurt Trump, as Trump cannot afford to lose the white voters and voters without a college degree. Considering that Biden is also the incumbent, this is another state which I think tilts towards him in 2024. Pennsylvania was decided by less than 81,000 votes in 2020. That might sound like a lot, but it's actually just slightly more than the Libertarian Party won in Pennsylvania in 2020. Once again, white voters and voters without a college degree broke heavily for Trump. Do I need to say it again? He can't afford to lose these votes. We actually have a brand new poll from Pennsylvania which shows Trump leading Biden by 2%. It also includes a Democratic primary poll which showed RFK Jr. with 17% of the vote. His supporters are primarily moderate or conservative Democrats. Would these voters also back RFK Jr. in a general election if he runs as an independent? Maybe. This one might annoy my conservative viewers, but I think Pennsylvania still tilts towards Joe Biden. He's the incumbent, Governor Shapiro is very popular, and Biden will run alongside Senator Bob Casey, who also has strong approvals. But if you think RFK Jr. will affect Biden more than Trump, you could easily flip this to tilt Trump. And our last state on the map is Nevada. In 2020, Biden actually narrowly won the vote among voters without a college degree. Biden's final margin of victory was less than 34,000 votes. Nevada has a none of these candidates option on their ballot, and that option received exactly 1% of the vote for a total of 14,079 votes. If RFK Jr. wins some of the none of these candidates voters and peels off support from both Trump and Biden among white, non-college educated voters, I don't think he'll really have much of an impact. We don't have any recent polls, so again, I'm giving the edge to Joe Biden, who can really run up the score in Clark County. The GOP really needs to embrace Nevada's vote-by-mail system, but rather than doing so, Governor Joe Lombardo is trying to abolish it. Really what I want to emphasize in this video is that I think there are only a handful of states where RFK Jr. could have a big impact on the race, and that you shouldn't just assume he's going to hurt Joe Biden. We don't even know how many states RFK Jr. is going to have ballot access in. As of today, I think RFK Jr. hurts Trump more than Biden, which is why I have states like Arizona, Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Nevada tilting towards the Democratic Party. However, if we were to give all of those states to Donald Trump in 2024, it would be enough for him to win the Electoral College. So if you're of the belief that RFK Jr. hurts Biden more than Trump, Trump's path to victory is very clear. Let me know what you think in the comments section down below, then check out my next video to see what the polls are saying about the state of the 2024 presidential election.